Pat. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. It's good to see you.
Great. It's good to see you too.
Yeah, I've got to work on that, haven't I? Because obviously, you know, we've got a video connection going on, but of course nobody else can see that. But maybe that's something I can work on in the future.
It's a tricky thing, isn't it? Because it's not that straightforward, and you know, it looks nice when two people are in the same room, I suppose, but that's a very different proposition, isn't it?
Yeah, and we should do that actually, because you and I have kind of known each other. Well, it was before the pandemic, wasn't it, that we met?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
yeah, and yet, I don't feel as though I've been fortunate enough to spend much time with you.
No, I know, and likewise, actually, and I suppose that's just having a busy kind of work life and stuff like that. But I think it was back at the UK drum show. We were both doing something with Joe and the Sabian Education Network. Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I thought that was. I reflect on that fondly. It was a good panel, and I was impressed by you, but also I was impressed by where education is and was going, certainly from a UK perspective. Because I think I went into it maybe a little bit cynical, a little bit guarded. But yeah, I came out of it feeling quite enthused, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting session. It was nice to meet, new people. I was very inspired by what you were doing, what you are doing, and your journey. And it was great. It was a really good platform, actually. And it was exciting just to see some of the different pockets of where education, particularly drum and music education, is going, actually.
Yeah. Do you find that because of the nature of what you and I do, in the sense that I suppose very ultimately you might say, even though we're part of teams, whether it's creative teams or education, we might certainly feel like we're self-employed. So getting together with like-minded people like that it can only be a good thing, right?
Absolutely, very, very much so. I mean, it's that. I mean, we frame it in that context, but it's a bit like being a gigging drummer. You never meet any other drummers because you're all on different gigs. You're all out there doing stuff, and it's it doesn't really matter where. I think you park that horse when you're working in education and you're working in music or you're working in the creative industries. You can meet people once, you can strike up really good relationships, but you can then just not see them for years properly. Time flies.
Yeah. So where are you right now?
Geographically speaking?
Yeah.
I'm in Brighton. Yeah, I'm down on the south coast. So I'm speaking to you from my studio in Brighton, or Hove, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I am. Yeah.
And are you is that home ground for you? Have you grown up there, or did you just move there?
No, I grew up between London first of all. So North London until I was about 10, and then we all moved up to Scotland, just outside Glasgow. Yeah, and we lived there for about 4, maybe nearly 5 years, and then we moved down to Brighton when I was just about 14, I think, 14 and a half, and then I've been based here kind of ever since, really.
And I ask this question of everyone because it fascinates me. I mean, why music? Why the drums? Was it a family influence, or was it, did you have a hero on top of the pops or something like that? Like, what got you into it?
I didn't know. So my family, immediate family, is very musical. Both of my parents were classical musicians in the orchestras in London. And my uncle was in a rock band on my dad's side, called the Motors in the 70s and early 80s, and that was my kind of exposure to rock music, I suppose. And I always found the drums very exciting. I started life as a cellist from about the age of 4, and kind of really got turned onto the drums when I was playing with youth orchestras, actually in Scotland, because I just figured that the percussion section were having monumentally more fun than I was in the cello section, or at least that's what it looked like. And then on one of them, they had a drum kit, and I was able to just jump on it after we'd done section rehearsals one day, and I just loved it. And then I'd always listened to the drums and found them exciting anyway. So that's kind of where it all started, really, I suppose, drum wise for me.
And was it from then? Was it private lessons or lessons at school? You know, how did you progress?
So I had private lessons first of all in Scotland with a guy called Roy Snedden, who was the principal percussionist with the BBC Radio Orchestra. I think I've got that right. And he was a drum kit player. He was one of Scotland's kind of first call session players at the time. So I had lessons with him through my father at the time. The reason we moved to Scotland was he took on a position of managing the BBC symphony orchestra, and so he knew Roy. I'd just been given a drum kit for my birthday that year. I can't remember how old I was, maybe 11, something like that. And so they set me up with some lessons from Roy. So he was my first exposure to that. And when we moved to Brighton, after a year or so, I think my mum found a drummer called, I think he was about 27, 28 at the time, called Steve Kellner, who was a Sabian endorsee and a Remo endorsee, and he was doing lots of clinics with, he was doing them with Dom Familiaro. He was doing them for his brands and stuff, and I was just exposed to this whole new side of things. So I studied with him for, I suppose, about 6 years. He's still actually someone that's a very close friend and mentor and to me. And then much later on, I went and studied with Bob Armstrong for about 5 or 6 years.
So you're. I think there's a transition, isn't there? From, it seems anyway, where people like you and I, we might have played the drums as teenagers in one guise, let's say, but then all of a sudden we're exposed to what we might call the art form, and it changes. You know.
Yeah, it does.
So is it fair to say that happened in Brighton for you when you started? Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Sorry, go. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say it did. It very much changed for me when I just started getting a real deep understanding of what the drums were about, actually, which coincided with my age and just having the capacity to understand what was going on and the history of it, and all of that stuff. And
I suppose as well, then you're ready to kind of deep dive into it, aren't you? It can become quite an obsessive pursuit. Very
much so, totally obsessive. I was completely obsessed with it. I still am. But I just don't think that type of obsession really goes away. You have to learn to kind of filter it into other areas or manage it, I think. I was completely obsessed with it. I got obsessed with just, I was being introduced to new players with Steve, so he'd introduced me to people like Omar Hakim and Weckl and Vinny Colaiuta, and these guys, along with people like Dennis Chambers, Virgil Donati a bit later on, and I was just like, wow, what a trip. And this is after already, of course, knowing about the Gene Krupas and the Buddy Rich, and I started listening to a lot of kind of the jazz stuff, Coltrane, Wayne Shorter, stuff like that around that time as well. But previous to that, I was a pretty militant rock and metalhead, I suppose. As in, that's what excited me.
Yeah, it seems. I think that's similar to me, really. When I got introduced to the art form, I couldn't believe it, but I also couldn't believe that I'd not heard of it. It was like a whole nother world existed. especially around the GRP, you know, the LA thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Those names that you've just mentioned, I was astonished by their precision. You know, but also the way they were playing, the choices they were making were just unfathomable to me. You know, it seemed like there was a real big disconnect between what I'd been exposed to and what was happening, at least.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, I think I'm maybe a little bit older than you, but do you think people of our sort of generation, those realizations, do you think that in some way we've helped move the drum form, the art form along here in the UK, or do you think that social media did that? Which chicken and egg, I guess. Which came first?
I suppose chicken and egg, isn't it? But I think the UK has always had a slightly different take on things in terms of the musicians it creates and you know that come through that whole system. The names we've just mentioned, I was conscious that they were, you know, they're all American names, and I suppose it's in conjunction with that kind of explosion of really American styles of music that I suppose, you know, in one way it was shipped over and then it was kind of shipped back in an entirely different context. But I think Britain, the UK, has always created and fostered really very, very high talent. I just think we do it in a slightly different way as well. And I think that part of that is the kind of maybe I suppose the cultural kind of attitude is different. The societal attitude is different, and it definitely comes across in people's playing and also people's outlook. I think musicians certainly, but yeah, the UK's always had a very, very high level.
Yeah, and do you think those outlooks reflect in opportunity as well?
I do sometimes, yeah, because you don't. Yeah. It's not just in music you see it. I think we're a lot more careful sometimes. I think that some of the more kind of bombastic kind of nature and attitude of, you know, if you took Ginger Baker, for example, and put him in LA at the same time, he wouldn't be the only person that was behaving like that.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean. Not afraid to tell people that he's brilliant. Not afraid to tell people what he thinks, and not afraid to just do his thing and just get down to it. And you know, that's not a typically kind of British thing, and it's something that the British look at and go, I don't know. Are you sure? Whereas it's, you know, you don't really get that. Also on the American side of things, I mean, if somebody's, you know, behaving quite outlandishly, then yes, but I do think that, yeah.
So did you formalise your studies? I mean, you sort of exposed to the art form in a very important way at an important stage in your life. Did that influence you to go and formalise it by way of doing a degree or something like that, or was it all, for lack of better terms, a kind of informal approach to your growth?
No, I suppose in terms of formal, if formal is going and doing formal, say, university study, and informal isn't, then it was informal. I've thought about this, and I think because of the classical background, because of the discipline in practice, and everything else, I think that I approached it in a different way than I would have done had I not had that background. So, and at the time, really the only option when I was 17, 18 would be to get anything meaningful, would be to go and study percussion at one of the conservatoires.
Yeah.
Popular music courses, although they'd been around for a while, they weren't, I suppose, really cooking yet. I think that one of the drum tech might have been around, but I was advised against it, and just encouraged to just go out and kind of play.
Okay, so did you get onto the gigging scene then? Was that?
Yeah, I did
as well.
It was part of it. Yeah. So from about the age of 16, when I just completely by accident landed in a band, that we then just started gigging at some of the guys' local school, and that ended up on with us going and doing Radio 1, and exposed me to Maida Vale and BBC Maida Vale, and doing my first session completely by accident, and stuff like that. I never wanted to be a freelance player, really. I wanted to be in a band, writing music and creating. It wasn't for the fame or anything else. It was just to do it. So I was out gigging quite early in terms of that kind of age, I suppose, and we were doing all kinds of battles of the bands and bits and bobs and stuff like that, and that just kind of led on to other things, really. Yeah,
I mean, a phrase I use a lot really is that modern creatives, they've got to have a portfolio career, unless of course they're interstellar or land a high profile gig. Did you have a presence of mind to know that you were developing your career, or is it only in hindsight where there's key moments that help you along? Because I guess the reason I'm fascinated by that is when I look at your biography and your the discography, education, it's a cultivated career. It's a considered offer, but is that by design, or is it a bit of good luck thrown in, maybe a little bit, right people, right place, right time,
I think there's always a bit of what you might call luck thrown into any of our careers. Although I don't like luck. I don't really believe in luck. Coincidence is a thing, but luck is very much for me the kind of just the coming together of hard work and opportunity. Or opportunities arising. Was it cultivated? It took me 3 goes to become a professional. So it took me go 1, thought I knew what I was doing, failed, got a job, learned some other things, gave it another go. It was going all right, didn't stop working, got a job, do it again. And then the 3rd time is when is when all the pieces kind of came together, and I was able to kind of really kind of convert those opportunities and long, be working long term. In hindsight, there's definitely kind of key moments. Was it cultivated from a young age? I wasn't really prepared to do anything else. That's not because I didn't have other things I liked doing. It was just because I loved it and wanted to do it. And there's a big difference between something I learned along the way was very early on. There's a big difference between thinking you want to do something like music and actually being able to do it. Because just because you love something a lot or enjoyed playing an instrument does not mean you're going to enjoy the various aspects of the music business and or the creative industries or even education. And when you say that about biography and all that kind of stuff and the portfolio career choice, I couldn't agree with you more. And especially not in 2025. For anybody, this is a portfolio career choice these days, which I think is much more positive in many ways. As well. But it's definitely a portfolio career choice.
And how do you go about managing the family commitments, the workload around the academic calendar, and then the demand of recording and playing live? I mean, that's because I've obviously been looking around. You tour, nationally and internationally. Obviously, teaching. to a very high level in formal systems as well. And then, of course, your private life. There's a lot there.
It is.
And I especially for, students that are listening to this who might be late teens, early 20s, these are the things perhaps that aren't on the curriculum.
Yes, quite, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just wondering how you go about, or would it be fair to say that one does the best they can because it's just not quite possible to achieve any of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yeah. It is. It's definitely a balance. Mm-hmm. I've been guilty of doing too much, and over the last, I suppose, 5 years, I've really worked on streamlining how everything works. So, playing live, I don't play with anyone other than the Osric Tentacles now. So I don't do any other gigs. I don't do any other live playing. I am able to balance that because of the type of playing we do and when the tours are, and they're not long tours either. And the educational, of course, playing to that level means you've also got to be practicing, and keeping your oar in it. So that's just something I balance and think of in that context. But it also feeds into the educational side of things, where I'm developing concepts or staying on top of concepts that I might also be demonstrating or teaching in a formal context, whether that's at the university or at a talk or whatever, or at my own kind of teaching, my own private teaching or the drum school teaching. So it's very much a balance. I haven't always been very good at it. I got to the point where I just had far too much on the go and achieved quite spectacular burnout, actually, just learned to. I didn't do this on my own. My wife's a great inspiration and a great help with this, because she's very, very good at looking at it and going, hang on, I don't know what you think you're up to, but in the real world, this isn't going to work. And
interesting,
and also reshifting priorities, because for years playing and music was the number one thing, and when you have kids and you've got a family and you've got this amazing opportunity, that's the most important thing. So everything's now geared around me being able to make that work. And as long as that works, I know I'm getting the balance right. And if I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, something's off, or whatever it is, So
no, I think that's. I think. I mean, it's good to hear. It's great to hear that you've got the support network as well, because. Again, the self-employed creative, we all have to be slightly obsessive, don't we? Because you wouldn't, if you go all the way back to the beginning, you wouldn't put the hours into practice.
No.
So when it becomes a professional practice, in a practitioner sense, that obsessive nature can work for and against you in equal measure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that. Certainly for me, and I'm guessing so for you. So forgive me if I'm off piece here, but having someone that can just kind of check you and like you say, just have that barometer of saying that's not going to happen or can't happen or whatever, is invaluable, really.
It is. You're absolutely right, and it's exactly the same. What you're saying for yourself, it's the same. It's the same for me, and I know guys that don't have that, or it's lots of touring musicians, relationships break down and all that kind of stuff, and it's because it's a way of life, and when you don't have that barometer, when you don't have that kind of calibrator, if you like, in your life, it can be really, really tricky. I think anything with the creative practitioner, if you like, to get to that point, and if you don't mind me saying, this as well, you have to be prepared to work harder than anybody else.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, whatever it is you're kind of pointing at and shooting at, you know, you've got to be prepared to work harder than the next person, whether that's playing, whether that's touring, whether that's education, whatever it is, you've got to be, you know, because as you keep going, someone stops, then the next person stops. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And as long as you're making the right choices and you're doing good things and you're playing well and you're learning new things, then, you know, it will happen, or something will happen.
Yeah. And do you, in terms of your own teaching now, is it a private practice, or are you in university setups, or an amalgamation of both?
Both. So I have my own drum school where I have my private students, and I have, you know, a waiting list kind of structure to that. And on the other side of things, I head of drums and percussion at a local, or a university that's all over the country actually, and into Europe, but at the local one here. So I look after the drum department there, and so I'm teaching on the degree. I'm mentoring and working with MA, so master's degree students, involved in course design and consultations and all that kind of stuff. And so the educational thing is in these two places really. I then bolt on some masterclasses and some kind of guest teaching sometimes when I'm asked to, or whatever, because I enjoy that side of things as well. But yeah, so that's how the education thing sits for me.
And do you find that in those, let's focus on the first two environments first of all. Do you find that the needs of the students are completely different? So the people that come to your private school, what do they come to you for versus those that are you know, doing bachelors and masters?
So, a good question. I suppose the ones that come to me privately, they come to me for career guidance, mentoring, and improving their drumming, or a better understanding of what they need to do to succeed in the part of the industry they need to go into. So it could be anything from, working on recording better drums with them, or looking at how to run playback because they want to get into teching, or whatever it is. It's much more of a career-centric thing, and most of my students in that context tend to be semi-pro and pro players, or working in the industry, through to really just very passionate kind of hobbyists that just love the drums alongside their life, and so that it tends to be those demographics. Whereas the university students, when I first see them, they're much more, this is we can come here and do a degree, and so instead of doing something I don't want to do in a university I don't want to go to, I'm coming here. Some of them come there because I'm there, or because one of the other drum team are there, or they've come down on an open day and we've had a chat, and that kind of stuff. But they're making different choices to come to university than my private students to study with me.
And in terms of clinics, that kind of thing, or drum camps, do you? I mean, a clinic for me, the best ones I ever attended were those that had got an element of entertainment, because sometimes the clinician would go in, I felt, a little bit too high. And then, because I am a firm believer in this, that you could, if you put someone off, it's obviously detrimental, isn't it? You can put someone off for life.
Very much so, yeah.
And of course nobody would mean to do that, but that can be an unfortunate outcome. But yeah, the entertainment side of it is interesting to me. Do you? How would you structure a clinic? Is there still the appetite for a clinic in these days, or is YouTube and the various actors that are on YouTube, have they taken that away? Is it all moved on?
I think for a while that's true, actually, and it is a changed area, actually. I suppose, but if you and I are talking about clinics, when it was very different. The only way to see that stuff would be to go to a clinic or a masterclass, and be in a room and soak it up. And invariably, some people were better at that than others. Sometimes there'd be, like you said, the level would just be so high that you'd be sitting there just going, I don't even know what's going on. Or there'd be, you'd walk out of the room, maybe sometimes you wouldn't remember a single thing the person played, but then other times you'd walk out and you'd be like so inspired. Yeah. So I think for a while the online thing has certainly changed things, because people have access to a whole library of material they didn't have before. But what you still don't have access to online is being in a room as part of a community of drummers who are just interested in the drums and drumming. Some will be in functions bands, some will just be in a pub band, some will just be in a dad band and just enjoying music. Some will be pro players, some will be kids looking to get out there, some will be people thinking they might want to change careers. So it's my approach is it's got to have a bit of everything. It's got to be, you've got to have the entertainment factor, as in a part of it's got to encompass that, but it's also got to be pitched correctly, that entertainment factor. It's got to be educational. So it's got to be, people have got to walk out with something, that whatever that is, and it's going to be different person to person. It's got to be inspirational, and it's got to be personal. I think you've got to be able to connect with people, because you don't. Those are things that, as a package, you don't get on YouTube or on Drumeo or on any platform. You don't get that as one person sitting in a room watching a drum video. You just don't get it. So that's my approach to them. I don't do many of them at all. I'm looking at putting a short tour, I suppose, together this year, but I really don't do many clinics or on my own. I actually find it quite a bizarre position for a drummer to be in, having done them now, in a room full of drummers. But that's why I say you've got to have your message, I suppose.
And can we just elaborate on that? When you say it's like a bizarre position to be in, I mean, is that a feeling that's internal to you, or is that based on experience? Good or bad? I
think both. I think my thing with the drums, for example, has always been that it's for you'd want to play drums because you want to play with other musicians, or you'd want to play music, and the integration and the kind of commitment to that community feeling is a big part of that. And so to take the drums out of the context of music, and then invite lots of drummers into a room and play drums for them, is quite a long way away from the reason I started playing drums. But as I've been involved in education, and when I just started getting asked to do these things, I thought, okay, well, maybe I should give this a go and just see what it's like. And once I'm into it, I enjoy it. I don't like anything about it until I start. but once I start, I really enjoy it. So that's where I think that difference is. That's what I mean by it's quite a bizarre. Actually, when you think about it, it's quite a bizarre position for drummers to be in, and that's why it's really important that there's an educational, entertainment factor, but also that it has to have a message to it. Because if you just want to see someone shred, you don't have to leave your room, and you can see anyone shredding. We live in interesting times in that regard, because I was talking to somebody about it the other day. Like when I was a kid,
you'd buy a copy of Rhythm or Modern Drummer, and you had to imagine what was going on, right? Because all you had was the article or the photos to look at. And of course, it's the classic shot of the drummer in front of the gear on a stage or whatever, either posing for the camera or like doing it. And everything else just needed imagining.
Yeah.
And then, I think that now with, let's call them influencers, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but you know what I mean? It changes again for me. And I'd love your opinion on this, because with the influencer, it seems to me that the videos seem to be getting shorter, or at least attention spans, let's say, or algorithms, whatever. So what is it that we're meant to take away from them? And with these like really like high viewer numbers, are we meant to take away anything other than, well, that's great, or not, or whatever your thing is, versus, because like the clinic thing, I understand what you mean. It's a moment in time, isn't it? It's like the weirdest gig you'll ever go to.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Because inevitably there's going to be a play along or whatever.
Yeah.
But everything you do and say is being analysed.
Yeah. In real time.
Yeah. And now they've got their phone out and they might even be streaming it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe that's revealing more about myself than.
No, I don't. I think you're spot on. I think we I suppose it was probably like knowing what life was like without a TV, and then knowing what life is like with a TV, or with a telephone and without a telephone, or with a radio and without a radio. I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were talking about someone, I can't remember who, that doesn't really matter, but it was around the time where you started to be able to make telecommunications to communicate things, and this guy refused to use the phone because he always thought it was much better to go face to face. So he would get his horse or his carriage or whatever and hoof it over to the next village to speak to someone rather than get on the phone. And I think that the online platforms have brought something amazing, if you like, to music and to drums and to instruments and stuff like that, in so much as there's the access to it. The problem is, in a way, there's so much stuff there that it's very, very easy to get distracted. And like you said, the algorithms, they're by design. So it's not, although you think it's a lot of your choice, it's actually not a lot of your choice sometimes in terms of where you're getting taken. So I think it's very easy, and I speak to people about this all the time, to get distracted. I suppose it depends on lots of things, really. But I think ultimately, I think there's a lot of highly questionable stuff. The influencers, like you said, I don't know what they're influencing necessarily. It could be, little Bob in New Zealand just takes one bite of information from something that he's seen as an influencer, and that propels him to wherever he's going in the next kind of 20 years, and that's great. But I think also it creates a lot of doubt. It creates a lot of insecurity. It creates a lot of questioning about what do you do as a drummer. Like I said, it's the woodshedding thing. It's like you can go and see loads of woodshedding, and I agree, it's exciting and it's entertaining, but it's not what you're ever going to be doing as a professional musician, or at least 99% of the time you're not going to be doing that. Yeah.
And then, do you think, therefore, that it makes the job of a music teacher perhaps more important now than ever? Because in a universe of information, who's right, who's wrong, everyone's got a take on something.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it does make it more important. I think it also makes it more important that music teachers guard their insecurities as well, because we've all got them. And I think it's really important that good educators who are also good players, who also experienced artists in various aspects of creative industries, or creative practitioners, if you like, maintain that sense of kind of focus and not getting too dragged in to the kind of zigging and zagging of who's doing what and what people are saying and who are these people anyway and stuff like that. I think it's really important. Yeah.
So how do you stay abreast of what's going on? You know, is it the geographical environment that you're in, the university, where you are in Britain? You know, how do you make those critical choices that you've just described?
I just keep an eye out. I keep an eye out, I suppose. I mean, I have, you know, I always talk to students about what they're listening to, what they're up to. If I haven't, you know, if someone just says something obscure in the middle of a conversation, then I'll probably have just forgotten it an hour later. But if 4 or 5 people say it, I'm going to be like, okay, you know, what are they listening to? What's going on here? Or people will bring kind of grooves to me, or you know, they'll go, how'd you get this drum sound? Or what drum heads is this guy using? Or what's the vibe here? So that's how I just keep abreast of it. That, and I've got you know, 2 daughters that are just, you know, love music and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm I'm getting it from that angle as well. Yeah,
I find that with my own, you know, my own school, that the students that are coming in, obviously young, dynamic people in the main. I'm discovering more and more music now than ever before. Because if I just rely on Spotify or whatever, it's giving me more of the same.
Yes,
which is not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
You know, but equally, I'm you know, I'm being exposed to a lot of good stuff.
Well, it's like you say, because you've got that younger demographic with your school, and as in they're younger than us, so it's, you know, it gives us it's like having however many younger students are, you know, we're in touch with or that you're getting information from, you know. It's like our Spotify or Apple Music or whatever times however many students. It's quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to chat with you about, and it's something I've always been impressed about with your playing, is the precision, the tone, as well as the pitch. That, you know, I mean, as a younger guy, you know, I always used to get tone and pitch confused when it came to you know, the drum, because it's not necessarily pitched, is it?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I just wonder if you could talk me through that, because the version of your playing that I listen to, is that in post, or is that actually what, you know, have you got those pitches and tones absolute on your drums and then you just mix what goes in, or is it some kind of hybrid?
No, it's what goes in. So I was always into drums that had lots of toms, not because of necessarily anything other than I was fascinated by the soundscape of lots of toms and lots of cymbals, because I didn't understand how you made that work. I knew how you made, you know, a rack and a floor, kick and a snare, a ride and crash and hats work, because that was what I started with, and that was all I had for years. But when I started hearing people with, you know, 3 toms, 4 toms, 5 toms, 6 toms, when I first saw Nico McBrain's kit, like in a magazine, I was like, what? And then, you know, seeing Tony Williams with busy kits, and then the sound, for example, that Weckl was getting on those records of his, and that whole thing he had with that the Yamaha kind of 9000, that cherry kit, and then listening to Gad, and I was just kind of listening to Dennis Chambers on here, I can't remember what it was, and then equally listening to, you know, Steve White's kit, for example, or when Steve was playing as a different thing, listening to the tone that he was getting from the drums. And pretty early on I understood that what you do with one drum affects every single drum. And, you know, so for example, if you with the resonance of drums, as you know, that if I've got a tom that's going to resonate at the same pitch as my snare drum, my snare's just going to be going crazy through the whole thing. And I got really geeky about head combinations and what they could give me. And then there's times where you're hard up for money when you're first kind of starting, and you'd like, well, what's a head I'm not going to have to be replacing next week if this is how much drum heads are, kind of vibe. And then just got into different materials and different types of bearing edge, and the weight of different hardware on different drums, and what different drum manufacturers were doing. And so I learned about tuning, and again, like I said, resonance. And then I basically did enough of that I just know what I want the drum to sound like, and I know how to get it. And whether that's with a big kit or a small kit, or whether that's just with kick and snare, that's where it comes from. I'd call it just a kind of unhealthy fascination with drum sound. And early on, sorry, just to finish that, with that band I mentioned being in, in those days, if you wanted to record drums, you had to go into a studio. And if you were going to go into a studio, you were spending quite a lot of money on it then. Even a pretty rubbish demo studio was going to cost you a pretty significant amount of money, especially if you're 16, 17, 18, or it was going to cost someone a lot of money. So you better know how your drums are going to sound when you're in there. The software to replace drum sounds, to re-trigger, to resample just wasn't around then. So you had to be able to get a good drum sound, and you had to be able to put your parts down in a timely fashion. So I think all those things combined, a lot of studio time early on.
There's a lot to take away from that, isn't there, really? In that, again, for like younger listeners, or in fact anyone really, you've got to be ready. Yeah. So if you think, even today, budgets are tight. If you're going to do it, in a studio, it's not going to be cheap, is it?
No.
So you ought to be ready, really.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe we should expand into video, because I'm looking over your shoulders and there's two very different drum sets, right?
Yes, there are. Yeah.
So of course I'm thinking to myself, well, they're gonna sound different.
Yeah, wildly different. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a wildly different sound. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you mirror that sound live in the studio? So if you got like and do you go for a more open sound live, or do you keep it still quite precise and make sure the engineer knows what you want?
It's a slightly more open sound live. So certainly when with the Osrix, it's a more open sound because I'm considering the rooms that we're playing in, the different rooms that we're playing in. Some of them are big rooms, some of them are really big, some of them are really small. So that might change in terms of how open I have them. I work with the engineer, Oded, our live sound engineer, to get the sound from the drums that we want. First of all, for the music, which goes hand in hand with the room. Of course, and the drum kit you can see over my right shoulder is pretty much a carbon copy of what I would take out on the road with them, and what I would take to some clinics and masterclasses as well. The kit over this side is more just a kind of typical bop setup that I use as a kind of bop kit. So it's tuned very open. Quite high pitched. The bass drum on that kit sounds like probably the floor tom or the 12-inch tom on that kit. So So and I like to take two kits out on the road when I go and do clinics or masterclasses, because I think drum, one of the things that inspires me with sound is a different sounding drum kit makes you play differently immediately. It's a whole different vocabulary that comes out. Yeah. So I like trying to, it's more gear to take around, but I like having it there because I think it's an important message as well, Actually.
And I think you're right. it's all part of the artistry, isn't it? It's not the what, it's the how and the why. Even choice of symbols.
Yeah.
It's all for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by what lengths like guitarists go to get their sound, and I find drums. Maybe drums unique in this regard. I don't know, but you can. Not only is it the size of the drum or the tuning, but of course you can have a completely different configuration, can't you? And that influences everything.
Yeah.
So we are quite creative in our kind of Meccano approach.
Yes, we are. Yeah. Yes, we are.
And we've all got our own personalities in our choices of setup, let alone choices of notes that we play.
Exactly.
And I wonder if that's why drummers like being around drummers and drums. I wonder if if there's some kind of like subconscious level inspiration happening all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I totally agree. It's we like being around drummers. We like being around other people that have experienced what we've experienced. The drums are a very different instrument, aside from obviously electric guitar is different to an acoustic drum kit, but even if you take an acoustic guitar, you're still playing by a whole different set of rules with an acoustic drum set, apart from the fact both of them are only going to really do what you tell them to do because they're acoustic instruments. But the head combinations that we've got, or the options even that we've got for head combinations now as drummers, is just mind-blowing. If you know what it is you're looking for, it's almost like you said, you've got to know what you're doing. Like for example, I've used Remo heads because I've always used Remo heads, and I just know what I'm doing with them. I've tried putting Evans heads on kits, or like the drums over there came with Evans head, and I was just like, I don't know how these things respond. I don't know where they sit. I don't know where they want to sit, and I whereas I could just slam Remo heads on it and I just know what I'm doing with them and where to go with them. So it's very much like you said, it's a choice thing. It's a very deliberate, very calculated thing for drummers. Everything from the heads to the types of beaters you're using on the bass drum, to the hi-hat pedal, to the bass drum pedal, to the cymbal combinations you're using. Yeah.
And I suppose again, like you're in the artistry zone there, aren't you? You've gone, in my humble opinion, you've gone way past the, playing the dots. It's it's for me. It's when a drummer. When you'll know it from listening to, we all know when it's a GAD record. We all know when it's Weckl or Vinny because of every choice that they've made is almost become a signature. Yeah, exactly. Much in the same way, the guitarists, singers, obviously. Yeah, and I'm sure it's the same. It must be the same for every discipline. But I haven't studied enough about cello players or violin players or whatever. But there are clearly celebrated principles around the world. Absolutely, yeah, very much so. I think it's very an individual thing, and there's a real signature with anybody, or I suppose not even anybody that's gone to a certain level. Certainly with drummers, there's a lot of drummers that get work or whatever that actually they don't have a particular sound, because one of the reasons they get work is because they can sound like anything. Yeah. Or anyone. There's a few people that talk about that. But yeah, there is a real signature thing. I think we're talking about records and drummers, from a certain period, but we could be talking about drummers from that just put their sound on records yesterday. The primary difference with more contemporary production is you don't really know if you're listening A, to that drummer, B, to the recorded drum sound from the studio. Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very different. That's quite often that's conversations I have with students. They're like, how do you get this drum sound? I said, well, that's Stephen Slate drums actually, or that's BFD. What's that?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm guilty of that. If in the sense that my studio setup is a hybrid of acoustic and triggers. And it might be like the kit that's just off camera here is all it's all Roland triggers, but sometimes I go audio to MIDI as well and try and remap it.
Yeah,
and that's often because of budget.
Yeah, it is. You know, yeah. But also, I think like it is budget, but it's also, I don't think it's something, you know, we should be. It's the modern and it's contemporary way of recording. We have different options now. We don't just have that option. You know, if I'm recording in here, tracking for someone for an album or for a single or for a TV advert or whatever, I can sit there in Logic and I can go section by section and I can have 6 instances up of every single microphone. And I can do things in a way that is time efficient and works for me and gives somebody a complete picture. If I was doing that same session going into, I don't know, Angel Studios in London in the late 90s, I would have got in there and expected to have the whole thing done in maximum of 3 takes.
Yeah.
And then out again because they've got someone else coming in. So, you know, contemporary modern recording techniques as well as drums, the ability to kind of trigger and re-trigger, mean it's just something for us to take advantage of in that way.
And I think that's why I asked, really. I think that leads me almost full circle in the sense of that's why I asked if your sound is post or if it's actually what goes in. Because literally because of everything that we've just spoken about, it's another part of the art form that you can either say, well, that's down to the individual to kind of experiment with, fine. But equally at the same time, sometimes you need a mentor role to kind of, just take the shoulders of someone and say, well, let's point you in that direction.
Yeah.
See how you get on for a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time it happened, like, for example, recording with the Osric Tentacles, they want the drums to sound like drums. They want my sound. They want the sound that they like. They want the sound that is the reason they've asked me to do it.
Yeah.
And therefore, anything you hear that I've put down on let's say the new album is just going to be my drums, just then produced. But I remember the first time. It was in 1996. I came back into the mix room and they were mixing 3 tracks on an EP, and the drum sound had completely changed. I was like, "What's happened to what's going on?" And Andy, who was mixing it, went, we've just, we've resampled and re-triggered everything, and that was a metal thing. That was a metal EP, and that was my introduction to it. And no one had asked me. I was in the band. No one had asked me, and I sat there. Really butthurt for about half an hour, really kind of, my the artistic heart bleeding, thinking, Christ, I've just, we spent so much time, 2 days getting drum sounds up, and you've just put triggers over them. I thought, what's the point? But I started to just kind of understand production techniques were moving on, how are you going to get an acoustic drum sound in that context to have a fight and come out on top with 50 tracks of distorted rhythm guitar? Well, you're not, and because everything just kind of happened differently. There was another time at Metropolis Studios I went in and we just put the drums down on a single. This was a completely different band. I came in and the bass drum sounded completely different. The rest of the kit sounded great. And I was like, how'd you get that sound then from the bass drum? Thinking, I don't know how you got that sound. And he just sampled it off a record that he liked and bunged it on. And at that point I just thought, okay, do you know what? People are going to do what they're going to do. Yeah, I'm in the band, but I'm not in the band, kind of thing. And it's this is just the life of a career musician drummer.
Yeah. It is fascinating. I mean, do you think that we're in a healthy place? Like the UK scene or your local scene, like, is this because some people say, well, the album's dead or the music industry's dead. I was reading, I commented on a post on LinkedIn. A friend of mine was like, the music industry is dead, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't think it is. Like,
No.
It's never been more alive.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I'm not trying to lead you there.
Yeah.
But do you think we're in a healthy place for us as practitioners, but also whoever follows?
I think we are in a really healthy place. I think there's caution to be observed there as well. And this goes back to what we were saying earlier in this chat about the portfolio career choice, because it is a portfolio career choice. There's no career in just being a recording drummer anymore, but there hasn't been for nearly a couple of decades now, really, There's a short career in being a touring musician. There's a long career in being a touring musician if you're prepared to make the other life sacrifices for that. There's all kinds of reasons, and not just studios and budgets, why it's not the money's not there to support a recording musician anymore. Typically speaking, streaming, downloading, the way royalties are paid or not paid anymore, really, from streaming. If you've got a hit song that's having 1 million streams and you've played drums on it, that's very different to having a hit song 25, 30 years ago that sells 1 million hard copy singles and is being played on radio all over whatever territory it's successful in. So I think there's a lot of caution there. I've found, and this is just an observation, and I've talked about this with people as well, that invariably the people who say the music industry's dead, there's no career in it, there's none of this, are invariably, from what I've seen, people that haven't moved along with it. Mm-hmm. Now, you can't move entirely with it because the whole thing moves far too quickly and it's far too dynamic. But within your area, if you're still trying to teach in education, whether that's formal or privately, however you look at it, but you're still trying to teach like it's the 1970s, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
If you're still of the mindset that you're not getting these sessions anymore that you were getting in the 90s or early 2000s, well, that's because you haven't changed along with it, or somewhere along the way things have just become too amalgamated, and because of that you can't kind of get out of it. And I think it's really tricky. I think one of the hardest things for creatives, whoever that is, a lot of artists are going through it at the moment with the advent of AI, because anyone can plug into an AI generator and come up with some pretty astounding artwork that really not that long ago you'd have had to speak to someone about a very good artist or graphic designer, like, years, 2 or 3 years ago. So I think there's a lot of that. But I think generally speaking, if you're looking forwards, if you're seeing what's coming, if you're on the ground, if you're kind of ebbing and flowing with it, but keeping an eye on just moving forwards, and you're not letting things kind of get to you and spending too much time thinking about the whys and wherefores, that we're in a really healthy place. And even just as anyone can record and release their music. The only people that's not good for is record labels.
Yeah. And they've obviously reconfigured and they're doing okay.
Yeah, and they're not doing badly out of the whole thing at all. And I don't think you can say the music industry is dead when you see just how vibrant it is. We've got bigger issues that with the industry are things that certainly in the UK are things that support the industry, like grassroots venues, funding, and that's more to do with local, central kind of governments, things like Brexit. All those kind of things are things that have had much, much more of an effect on the music industry and musicians in terms of being able to just earn a living a bit more easily than streaming has in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, where I work, we pride ourselves on being a school that's based on performance. But even we're having questions, internally, like, should we actually reimagine what a performance is? Like, you've got some people, for whatever reason, that can't get on stage because of anxiety or whatever. So should that be a video for social media? It's still a performance. Then you've got those that want to get on stage and, the typical kind of end of year family concert kind of thing, but there isn't the venue, and so it's like, how do you, it's not convince, but convey that there is a route for them. And my eldest son, when he was at university studying music, he'd play a local venue called the Maze, which everybody knew and loved, and now that's a student apartment.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
And there's a plaque outside that this used to be the Maze.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, this is perhaps a conversation for another day. But of course, the clientele that were in there weren't buying drinks, right?
Yeah.
So there's no commercial viability in it. No,
and it is very hard. I mean, it is very hard. It's very hard, but it's always been very hard, to be honest with you. And again, there has been, there is more of a shift, and it's something I really talk about a lot, and that is that, because I didn't have it when I was 17, 18, I just was like, well, I can't go, and there's a couple of other things I'd be quite interested in doing, actually, or studying or looking at, but I can't go and gig, or I can't go and do this, or I can't practice, or I can't whatever, if I go and do those things. And I think with this shift to much more of a portfolio message means that people can go and do things. If you want to, if you like, what else are you interested in? I quite fancy being a vet or a chef or whatever. Well, great. Well, then go to university. Think about how you could study being a vet, because you can still gig, you can still practice your instrument, you can still be serious, you can still, if you want, if everything just blows up and you find yourself in this band or you get this audition, you can just pause your university course and you can go back to it, or you can park the drums up for a little while if you get really into being a chef and you want to suddenly, for some bizarre reason, open up your own restaurant and everything else. Then there's all kinds of things you can do here, whatever it is. So I really think the message is more and more, it's got to be, don't be afraid to do the things and follow the paths that you want to follow. 2 or 3 of them. You can't do everything seriously and to the best of your ability, because it's too much, but you can do other things. If you want to really get into teaching, then really learn about it, go and study it, do it, and go and play, or go and do whatever it is you're going to do. But there's definitely scope for people to believe and feel like it's all right to do more than one thing.
I think that's hugely inspiring, actually, everything that you've just said there, because I think culturally we come from a system that says you should study at a young age. There's like a critical path where, from the age of like 3, let's say, you don't stop learning until your early 20s. Whereas actually you can be a lifelong learner, right? In any environment. Yeah,
we're humans by their their genetic makeup is you're always learning about your environment and changes. And when you put that in the context of creative practitioners, and the portfolio career within the many areas you can work in within the creative industries, not just, locally where you are, it's not just locally where I am, Brighton or London, or even nationally in the UK, but worldwide, in Europe or internationally. It's it's astonishing, really. The book is so open for people to kind of really, really go there.
So what's next for you? What projects are you working on that you might be able to tell us about?
So I've got with Osric Tentacles, we've got a tour that's to be announced, I think, in the next few months later on this year. There's a new album coming out, I think, later in the spring. And we've got some one-off shows and festivals kind of throughout the spring and summer. And stuff like that. I'm working on a recording project that I've been working on since COVID, actually, with a friend of mine called Massimo, who is a guitarist in probably the UK's most successful, I suppose, new metal export band called 1 Minute Silence. And we've got this little project called Theftuous, which is a recording project. I record the drums here. He produces everything up. The bass player John is in a band called Snot, and they're a very successsul band. They've just kind of doing a reunion thing. He's in the States. Our singer Marcus is also in the States. So we do that. There's some more tracking coming up for that. I'm kind of planning this kind of small kind of mini, I suppose. I don't really like the word clinic, and I don't really like the word masterclass, but there isn't really another one for it at the moment. Kind of masterclass, kind of short run for some time this year. There's the university, which is, there'll be new students coming on board. There'll be lots of meetings and stuff going on and planning. And my drum school, which I was looking at expanding this year, but again, the advice of my wife was like, listen, just enjoy kind of where we're at the moment, and my main focus away from all of that is my daughters, my family, and spending as much time as I can, and being a good father, which is, perhaps, although it might sound difficult when you kind of balance all that up, it's the biggest investment of my time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I love to hear that, and I couldn't agree more. Because it moves too quickly.
Yes, right? You've got older kids than I have, and I'm terrified by how quickly it's gone. When I really realised, hang on, this goes really quick. There isn't a second chance with this, really. So to enjoy this and just soak up those kind of moments, even as frustrating as they can be, there isn't a second chance. So that really is the kind of focus. That's the kind of perpetual what's next, I suppose.
Well, I think that's an amazing place for us to push pause. And, I say pause because I would love it if you came back and did this again at some point in the future.
I'd love to. Anytime. Absolutely anytime, with you and for you. Absolutely anytime.
Oh, thank you. I found this chat so inspiring, so helpful.
Well, likewise. It's why I like hanging with you and chatting, and just, even though we don't get to do it that often, whenever we do, it's just a really, really, really great thing. And I can't really thank you enough, really.
No, likewise. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to you. I think I learn a lot. I always feel recharged when I've spent some time with you. So maybe we should try and do more of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well,
Great.
Pat, thank you. Please do send me some links so I can put in the show notes of where people can connect with you and follow your tour dates and listen to your music. So that would be great if you could do that.
Absolutely, I will do. I'll do that, yeah.
Great. Well, Pat, thank you. That was an absolute pleasure.
Nice one, man. Thanks for having me, Paul.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.